The Florida Gators are 15 years removed from their last SEC championship, and the task of turning the storied program around is a tall order. When Billy Napier arrived at Florida, he was adamant that he knew what he was inheriting in Gainesville. Let's bring on coaching insider Jesse Simonton. Jesse, I know you just sat down with Billy Napier for a one-on-one. In your opinion, how did he view the job before he arrived?
I think he viewed it as kind of a sleeping giant, so to speak, but he was realistic in that Florida, what people think Florida is not that right now. They're 15 years removed from those glory days of the Urban Meyer winning the national championship and SEC championship in 2008. Florida has made it to the title game 3 other times since then, but they have yet to actually even win the SEC. And so while Billy Napier is very open and cognizant of the fact that, he knew and followed the Gators during the heyday of the Spurrier, Fun and Gun, he was a young coach at Clemson during Urban's tenure here. It's not the same Florida, and now it's up to him as the 4th head coach in that time since to kind of get this thing turned around.
Yeah, and part of this rebuild was with the recruiting department. Napier brought in an army of off-field helpers, but they still ran into some issues, namely the Jaden Rashada situation. In your discussion with Billy Napier, does he feel like he fixed some of UF's issues? Or not him, but does UF feel that they fixed their issues?
Oh, it's funny, and you know a lot about this program, Josh, just because of your time covering Florida State and your knowledge just in this state in general. And the buzziest word around Florida for years has always been alignment, and the fact that their administration, they don't kind of stick their hand in the cookie jar too much. They feel like they are aligned, quote unquote, so to speak, with the football program, the rest of the athletic department. And yet that alignment, I think, may be true, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you're necessarily prepared. And so Billy Napier kind of admitted that, they got kind of caught with their pants down a little bit in terms of where they were in terms of readiness with both NIL and the changes in the transfer portal. And so it's taken 10 to 12 months, but they are much more comfortable and much more confident that now they kind of have a unified and codified collective, the Florida Victorious, that NIL will be a strength for this program moving forward. The Rashada situation was an ugly PR nightmare. It was not the only NIL issue, though, that they ran up against, in this last year. And so they feel like it is going to be a strength. If you take a peek at where they are in the kind of the early makings of the 2024 class, depending on how much NIL is being played in that or not, Florida is off to an excellent start.
All right. So do you think Billy Napier's blueprint that worked turning around Louisiana, will it work in the SEC with the Florida Gators?
That's the matzo ball soup question right there, Josh. I mean, and it's hanging out there because Billy Napier believes he has kind of the proof of concept. And in my conversation with him, he was very open about that. And yet, can you out Georgia? And that's kind of the biggest question, because what he's doing, he has, kind of this amalgamation of, he coached with Nick Saban, he's got the rah-rah culture stuff at Dabo, but he is running the process here. This is very similar to the blueprint of what Kirby took to Georgia, of what other, former Saban assistants have tried to do elsewhere. Jeremy Pruitt did it with no success at Tennessee. Will Muschamp tried a similar deal down here in Florida, but he did not have the backing from the administration in terms of financially for what Billy Napier has. Billy Napier has a $90 million, brand new football complex. They've given him the highest off-field staff compensation of any school in the SEC, over Alabama, over Georgia, LSU. The question is, you can't hit pause on what those programs are doing. Alabama just signed the best recruiting class they ever have under Nick Saban. Kirby's won back-to-back titles, and that locomotive in Athens does not look to be slowing down. And so Billy can't hit pause there and fast forward here, and that's kind of the dilemma that he's up against.
Yeah, and 6-7, that was the first year record, but that's in the rear view now. So do you think they did enough this offseason to take the next step in year 2 under Billy Napier?
Frankly, I think this is a team that could go anywhere between 4-8 and 8-4. And that's a scary situation for the Gators because this is, fan apathy is probably at an all-time high right now in Gainesville, which is concerning because we know that in this new day and age of NIL, it's about the dollars you are producing. And so, not having eyeballs or interest there could ultimately be an even bigger issue that they face down the road. But Billy has done a nice job with the roster in terms of collecting high school talent. You signed 18 blue chippers a year ago. That's number 4 in the SEC. Not good enough if you want to beat Alabama and Georgia, but at least you're in, the ballpark, so to speak. The concern, I would say, Josh, is I don't think, and this has been kind of an issue raised by some Florida fans, I don't think they've hammered or hit the transfer portal as hard as they should have. Graham Mertz at quarterback, he's the one guy, that they really feel great about at that spot, but they kicked the tires on Michael Pratt at Tulane. That didn't work out. Grayson McCall, that was just never going to really happen. So they've got a quarterback. They brought in Moten, the safety from Michigan. They've got, some offensive and defensive alignment, but I just think overall the wide receiver room still lacks talent. They probably could use a couple more pieces in the secondary there. And I'm not, again, depending on your belief in kind of what Graham Mertz maybe was as a high school prospect and now is as a guy who started several years at Wisconsin, I'm a little skeptical.
All right, Jesse. Well, it's a pivotal offseason for the Gators, and you got to sit down with the head man himself, Billy Napier. Thanks for stopping by Coach's Corner to share it with us. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Huge week 1 going out to Utah.